Hey everybody, this is Mrs. Hahn, and I want to talk to you about what an allusion is. So let's first define what an allusion is. So an allusion is a reference in literature to a famous historical or literary event or person. So when you're reading a book or a poem or a short story, and they make a reference to someone or something that is well known in history, whether that is Greek mythology or the Bible or even like a celebrity that was well known in the past, a famous scientist, that is called an illusion. So let's look at this first example here. Example one. That guy thinks he's such a Romeo. Even if you haven't read Romeo and Juliet, you know that that's a famous love story, and you know that that is commenting on whoever they're talking about thinks they're romantic. Okay, example number two, chocolate is my Achilles heel. So if you know much about Greek mythology, you may have read the story of Achilles, who was super strong and won every battle, but his weakness was his heel, and that was his undoing. So that's an allusion or a reference to Greek mythology. Number three, she made a Herculean effort to win the 3-meter dash. So again, that's a reference to Greek mythology, to Hercules, who was so powerful and strong. Here's one on the right. You can see in the comic, he says, "You're such a Grinch." That's a more modern allusion to the story of the Grinch, who is grumpy and wants to ruin Christmas. Now, in one of the poems that we are reading, there's an allusion to the Garden of Eden. So I wanted to quickly go over that for those of you that aren't familiar with that story. So this is actually a picture of the Garden of Eden. So in Western Christian religion, the Garden of Eden is the story of the beginning of the world. And so you see this like paradise, and there's this man and the woman, Adam and Eve, and they're the first man and woman, and they live there with all the animals. I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of a description so we can understand the illusion of the Garden of Eden. All right, so the Garden of Eden, in the Bible, the Garden of Eden was this beautiful garden containing what was called the tree of knowledge of good and evil, where the first man and woman lived, Adam and Eve. So in this garden, there was no pain, there was no disease, there was no sadness, there was no evil. So God intended for Adam and Eve, these people he created, to live in this peaceful, innocent world, this paradise. So in order to remain peaceful, Adam and Eve had to remain innocent of most of the knowledge of the world. So they were forbidden from picking the apples off of the tree of knowledge and good and evil because it would open up their eyes to too much knowledge and they couldn't be innocent any longer. So then there's the snake, which is really the devil in the story. He sneakily, secretly convinces Eve to eat the apple, and then she convinces Adam to eat the forbidden fruit, which many people believe was an apple as well. So because of their disobedience, God forced them to leave the Garden of Eden. So, in this story of the Garden of Eden, the apple represents knowledge, but also their choice to disobey and do the wrong thing. And the Garden of Eden represents this paradise of perfection and innocence. So, when you read the poem or watch the poem Touchscreen by Marshall Davis Jones, he does reference the Garden of Eden and how apple picking has always come at a great price. And he really means Apple in two ways. One, Apple, the technology company that makes iPhones and MacBooks, they're the Apple company. And then two, he's also referencing this biblical allusion of the Garden of Eden and how Eve ate the apple. Hopefully that helps you understand allusions just a little bit better.